Paul, in your article, you quote Tal Becker, who says that Zionism is a product of people who felt abandoned by the world. October 7 has in some way, Tal Becker says, put this sense of an aloneness on steroids. Nobody understands the Jews, the media's against us, there's disinformation. It reinstates the sense of being on our own with our trauma. I think this is such a profound point. Was this a sense that was reinforced by your visit to Israel, that it's a misunderstood nation?
I think it is a misunderstood nation. I think this is a tragedy. This sense of loneliness is palpable. And when you talk to people, they might look at Australia's criticism of Israel and say, why are you doing this in Australia? And then in the next breath, they'll be criticising their own government. And I think the point to make about this is that Israel was created with this sense that it couldn't rely on the rest of the world. After it was created, it had to look after itself. It was under attack right from the start. It's fought a number of wars throughout its history because most of its neighbours have never accepted its legitimacy. So it's not surprising there is this sense of embattlement. But I think this is one of the really bad features about Israel today. This sense of isolation, this sense that the world is moving away from us. The world has turned its back on us. Now, this is a bad thing, and it's the product of two factors, of course. One is the nature of the war in Gaza. But a second one, of course, is that there's a lot of anti-Israeli sentiment in much of the Western world, and the war has been the excuse for a lot of people, particularly people on the left, to fan that sentiment.
It has indeed, and it extends to not just to Israelis, I think, but that sense of abandonment extends to the Jewish community around the world.
It does.
Look, you write of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he has three goals: to win the war against Hamas, to eliminate Iran's nuclear program, to normalise ties with Saudi Arabia. And I know that because he told me himself when I met with him. I'd add there's another goal he has, which is to bring home the hostages. How do you assess that he's going in his bid to achieve these goals?
He's not going well. Now, I appreciate the goals, but the goals are goals of enormous ambition. And I think the problem is that I'd say there are two fundamental defects here. One is that Netanyahu has got a military strategy and it's been very successful. He doesn't have a political strategy. And we know from wars throughout history that you can't succeed unless you've got both together. So a military strategy is not going to be enough, even if the military strategy prevails in Gaza, and there are major question marks about that. I think the other difficulty that Netanyahu faces is that he can't talk to the world. He can't speak to the world. He can't speak to the world in moral terms. He can't explain to the world what Israel's actually doing. He has trouble persuading his own people, and he certainly can't persuade the world. Now, if we look at the goals are to win the war in Gaza. Well, there's a military question mark about whether or not that's possible, but he has no political strategy for Gaza after the military victory. The objective is, of course, to establish...
Not one that he said publicly anyway.
Well, I've probed a lot of people. What is the strategy? If it exists, I certainly couldn't find it. His objective, of course, is to establish diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia. That would be a world-transforming event. He's got to give the Saudis something to do that. And I can't see what that is. And finally, the Iranians are a fundamental problem. And that's where you deal with Netanyahu and Donald Trump.
And just finally, I'm being told we're out of time, but just finally, I do want to ask you about Trump and Iran because, you know, clearly Israel does want to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. I mean, this needs to happen one way or another. Trump has taken this pacifist approach. He wants it done through dialogue. That seems unrealistic at this point, doesn't it?
Trump supports Israel, but I think there are a lot of differences between Trump and Netanyahu. Now, the view of Israel is Iran is historically weak. This is a particularly important moment. This is the moment when the nuclear program, when the enrichment program must be terminated. It can be terminated either by negotiations or by a military strike. Enter Trump. So the Trump administration is doing all the negotiations, and so far the offer is pretty weak. The Iranians have said no. They're calling Trump's bluff. So what will Trump do? Will Trump knuckle down and get a decent negotiated settlement out of the Iranians? I don't think so. In that case, the only option left for Israel is the military strike. But they can't strike against Iran unless they've got the green light from America, and probably unless they've got some military support from America. So on both fronts, Trump is a problem in terms of Israel's ambition dealing with Iran.
Indeed. Paul, I could talk to you for an hour, but we're out of time. Such an honour to have you on, as always. I admire you more than I can say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shari.